All right, so lesson 12, solving radical equations. Now I'm just going to show you guys a couple of shortcuts so that you guys know what you're supposed to do in certain situations. And then once we get to those during the problems, then you'll kind of know what you need to do. Okay, so first off, a couple little hints. Okay, if you ever see a square root of something and you want to get rid of the square root, then square stuff. Okay, so if you want to get rid of a square root, then square it. Okay, and that'll just give you your x. So if you had, say, like a cubed root of x, then you want to cube it. In other words, raise the index to the same power. Okay, and that's just going to give you that. So that's one thing you can do. Now, another little trick you can do, let's say you have like x to the 1/2, and you want to get rid of that half power. Then what you do is raise it to the index. Remember, this number right here is your index, right? So raise it to the index. Half times 2 is a 1. So that basically means all you get is an x. So let's, just to give you one more of these things, what if you had a 1/4, then raise it to the 4th power. And that's just going to give you a y. Okay, so make sure you guys understand that. If you understand that, then you should be okay with what we need to do in the next part. Okay, so here we go. We got some examples. I think we got about 7 of them. All right, they're not all really difficult. There's like 1 or 2 that might take a little bit of time, but most of them are pretty straightforward. So here we go. We're going to solve. And the first one we're going to try solving is the cube root of w equal to 3. They want me to solve for w. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the cube root of w equal to 3. And I want to get rid of that cubed root. So I'm going to take it up to the 3rd power. Right? So that's going to allow this to cancel out. So all that's left is just my w. And 3 to the 3rd is 27. And there's my answer. Real quick. Okay? So no big deal. There's my solution. So let me give you another problem kind of similar to that. But it's a little backwards though. This one says w to the 4th is 9. Okay? I actually didn't show you one of these, but let me write down this hint for you guys. If you have like x squared and you want to get rid of it, then take the square root, the indexed root, and that's going to give you an x. So for example, if you had a y to the 3rd, then you want to take a cubed root of it, and that'll get rid of the radical. Okay, so for part B, we have y to the 4th. So what I'm going to want to do, let me rewrite this here, y to the 4th equals 9, is I'm going to want to take a 4th root. Okay, and when I take a 4th root, all that's left is a y. And over here, well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we can't do much. The 4th root of 9 is the 4th root of 9, so that's the answer. I can't simplify 9 into something to a power of 4, so I'm just done there. Okay, let's try another one. If we give you t to the 1/3 equal to 2, well, again, I want to solve for t, but t has a rational power, so that's right here, the stuff in this portion. Okay, notice if you have fractional powers, just get the denominator, and that's what you use as the power to raise it to. So t to the 1/3 equal to 2, I'm going to raise it to the 3rd power. Okay, that'll allow this stuff to cancel. So it's just t equal to 8. Okay, so just t equal to 8. All right, Now, one more of these really quick, and then we'll move on to a different looking one, but they're still going to be about the same idea. But one more of these. So they're going to say solve for x, and they're going to give us something that looks like this. Okay, so I got to get x by itself. Now I notice that x is inside of a square root. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me first just rewrite this really quick, is I'm going to raise it. Okay, everything is going to be raised to the power of 2 because it's a square root, so I'm going to square it. Okay, and this over here too. So this will be d squared equals to, well, that'll get rid of the radical, so that's 16x. And if I just want to solve for x, I'm going to divide both sides by 16. So d squared over 16 equals to x, and that's it. That's done. So hopefully those don't seem that difficult. The next ones that we do might seem a little bit more difficult, but we'll see. Okay, so it's going to be example number 2. We're still going to do all the same tactics that we're using. So we're not like, oh my gosh, we're kind of relearn whole new things. We're going to basically do the same thing. It's just going to look like it's going to be harder. Okay, so here's the first one. So you can see 3x plus 3 to the 1/3 plus 1 equals 5. Let me rewrite that 1/3 a little nicer. Okay, so since I got to solve for x, I got to get rid of that 1/3 power. But first I see that plus 1 portion right here. So I'm going to move that over. Okay, I'm going to move that over by subtracting 1 on both sides. So I get 3x plus 3 to the 1/3 power equals 4. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you had a power that was a fraction, then you have to raise it to a power. Okay, and that power needs to be the denominator of the fraction, so 3. That'll cancel this out. So all I have left is 3x plus 3 equal to, well, 4 to the 3rd, that's 64. Now let's subtract 3. So minus 3 here, minus 3 here, we get 3x equals to 61. And to get x by itself, we divide by 3. So x is 61 over 3, and that cannot be divided. So we just leave it alone. So notice it's not like extremely difficult what we just did, but yeah, it's a little different. Okay, it is a little bit different. So let's do part B. Now part B says w equal to the square root of 3w minus 2. Now we got to solve for w in this case. Okay, but you notice there's a w all by itself on the left, but there's one stuck inside of a square root on the right. So since it's stuck inside of the square root, let me rewrite this here. I'm going to have to get that w inside the square root. I'm going to have to break it out, right? So I'm going to multiply everything by a 2. Okay, so not a 2, I'm sorry, by a square. I'm going to get everything, I'm going to square everything. All right, so on the left side, it's w squared. On the right side, well, that 2 is going to get rid of that radical, so it's 3w minus 2. Now, in order to solve, we always have to set things equal to 0. So I'm going to move everything over. This is w squared. I'm sorry, let's subtract 3w, and I'll move this over here, so minus 3w as well. So this is w squared minus 3w equals to negative 2, and then we'll add 2 to both sides. So that's w squared minus 3w plus 2 equals 0. Now at this point, we're going to kind of go back to our factoring portion, okay, using our x method. So for this, let's use the x method. On top is a 2, on the bottom is a negative 3, so this would be a negative 1 and a negative 2. So this is w minus 1 w minus 2 equals to 0. Okay, so w minus 1 equals 0. W minus 2 equals 0. So w is either equal to 1 or w is equal to 2. So I'm just going to write down w can be equal to 1 and 2. And that would be my solution. So notice this one was a little different because we did have to factor. We ended up with multiple solutions, so that's okay. We're going to do one more problem like this, and it's going to kind of turn out the same way, all right, where we're going to have to move things into quadratics. So we're going to have to factor into quadratics. So here we go. 3x is equal to the square root of 10x squared minus 8x plus 12. Okay, so there's x's everywhere, but some of them are stuck inside of square roots. So since they're stuck, I'm going to have to get them out of the square roots. And the way we get things out of square roots is that we're going to have to square everything, right? So I'm going to square this, and I'm going to square that. And remember, the square actually gets rid of the radical. So we have 9x squared, right? Because 3x squared is 9x squared. And then this is just going to be 10x squared minus 8x plus 12. Now let's subtract the 9x squared because we got to make sure that one side is equal to 0. So that's 0 equal to x squared minus 8x plus 12. Now again, let's factor, right? We're going to do the x method right here. So out here's a 12, here's a minus 8. That would be a negative 2 and a negative 6, right? Negative 2 times negative 6 is 12, but if you add them together, you get negative 8. So 0 equals to x minus 2, x minus 6. So let's solve. X minus 2 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. So x must be 2, x must be 6. So I get two solutions, x equal to 2 and 6. So those are the examples that we're going to give you guys for lesson 12. As usual, sound like a broken record here, but please contact your teachers if you're having any problem doing this. Let us know whether or not you need help. So we can kind of show up for you guys, maybe through a Hangouts meeting or a Meet meeting, whatever it's called right now, Google Meets, I think it's called. But we can do something like that. Or make sure you guys show up to our office hours, okay? We're going to be having office hours on specific days, and we might even try to see if we can set up more times later. So I hope this helped. Have a good day, guys.